guys, what's up? I'm just Joni Abbott. Welcome to my presentation for Trinity Health Freedom Expo. I'm so excited to be here with you talking about one of the topics that I am most passionate about, and that is the natural health, naturopathic aspects for you and your family, and making the switch. I'm sharing 20 years of experience of all of the things that I've learned being a stay-at-home mom, a home birthing mama, a breastfeeding mama, a baby-wearing mama, a homeschooling mama, and all of the ways that not only has my life changed into being the career mama now, and using natural health and naturopathic methods in order to keep us healthy. I've run the gambit of, from staying at home to going back to work part-time to going back to work full-time. And while we've experienced our challenges, these tried and true methods that have been found all over the world, I'm not new to any of this. I'm just sharing it with you. These tried and true methods have really worked very well to keep us healthy over the course of the last 20 years. So I cannot wait to share this with you. I'm going to go ahead and just shorten my screen here because I'm going to share my PowerPoint, and I will be doing that with you here right now. Okay, we're going to start from the beginning, making the switch from allopathy to naturopathy for you and your family. And we're really going to talk about mindset first, because we cannot approach natural health and preventative, proactive healthcare with the same kind of mindset that we have had most of our lives, with only knowing the modern medical system and allopathy as a way to treat or take care of our health. So it's super important to first get that mindset shift underway before then we go into understanding how the whole mind, body, and spirit work together for our overall health. And then I'm going to share all the tools with you that I've used that you need to become your very own empowered health advocate. So thank you so much for being here with me today. So I am Joni Abbott, also known as Just Joni, and I'm the Homegrown Health podcast owner and host. I have been in mainstream radio broadcasting for 24 years. I started very young, just out of high school in my radio career, and it has opened so many doors and brought me to so many wonderful places, including right here at the Trinity School of Natural Health and Trinity Health Freedom Expo. I've been a guest co-host on local TV for the last year and a half now, and I'm also a natural health advocate. Actually, it's been 2 years on TV. This is so nuts. I didn't think this side of 40 I would be on TV, so it's kind of cool that I kind of get to add that to some of the things that I do and reaching different audiences. I'm definitely a natural health advocate. I'm a Trinity trained health coach on my way to become a traditional naturopath. 20 plus years of research in natural health, from anything from vaccines to home birth to all of these methods I'm going to share with you today. And then, of course, applying those methods naturally, raising 4 kiddos. So why 2 names? Now, in case you're wondering, no, I don't have split personalities. Being in radio and having, several different on-air names has presented its challenges over the years, because most people are confused as to who I really am, whether it's the radio station that created the on-air name for me, or it's something I came up on my own, like Joni Mitchell, who I was named after. That was my very first on-air name. They get confused as to who I really am and what my real name is. So the best thing I can share is that I was all of the personalities. Some aspects of me were highlighted more than others, just depending on the station I was on and the demographic we were trying to reach. So early on in my podcast, I had to keep my mainstream and my alternative media broadcasts separate. It's kind of like Western medicine and how that model dissects and bisects our bodies, separating the whole and isolating the flow and functionality, that we are all connected and that one thing affects the other. So finally, when I was asked, what's your name again? It's just a few years ago, I answered, I'm just Joni. Just call me Joni. And even there on social media, Just Joni stuck. And that's where I was able to fully express all of the things that make me uniquely me. So This switch from allopathy to naturopathy, or even just incorporating, because really allopathy does have its place. We know that emergency medicine is very necessary. We know that surgery is very necessary. We know that there are times we are going to have to switch to allopathic medicine, but it's more in the emergency mindset, and it's more of the rarity that we would turn to that versus having it be our everyday mindset and the everyday thing that we turn to when we aren't feeling well or we get sick. So in this mindset, we're going to first learn how we've been trained to react and not prevent. So let's think about it. We don't fix it unless it's broken. We don't go to the doctor unless we are sick. Prevention is something that many preach but don't practice. And we certainly aren't taught as patients in the modern medical field how to actually prevent or treat things from a natural mindset. Without docs being trained in nutrition, especially in herbs, asking doctors, mainstream medical doctors, for health and eating advice is kind of like going to a mechanic for a root canal or asking someone who speaks Mandarin to translate a letter written in German. Lifestyle as a healthy preventative measure is something we must accept responsibility for ultimately. If you are looking for anyone, if you are looking to anyone, a doctor, a practitioner, or a coach first, to accept responsibility for your health, I'd really like to ask that you reconsider that mindset and consider shifting. No one but you is ultimately responsible for your health. No one but you is responsible for what you feed and put into your body as fuel. And no one but you are going to be able to say that you've given your body the right fuel and circumstances to get you from point A to point B. If you think about it like a car, we're going to do pretty good in shifting this mindset. The sad part about this mindset is realizing that we've probably treated our cars much better than we've actually treated our bodies. Only you can answer that. And there's no judgment here because this is all about learning and not about condemning. It's all about learning the steps that we can take next and what we can do right now, just in even shifting that mindset to get to our most empowered, healthy state. To balance all of this, can we prevent everything? Absolutely not. There are many other factors involved, including accidents, like breaking your foot singing karaoke, because I've done that before, that we don't see coming when we're trying to pretend to be Madonna. It's absolutely not anything that we can absolutely prevent everything. So it's worth doing what we can, continuing to learn, and when we know better, we can absolutely do better. All right, we have been taught only one way by dismissal of other options. So if you think about it, we've all been taught the reactionary mindset. Reactionary mindsets or defensive mindsets. I also like to call them constrictive mindsets because it makes our world very small. We see through only one lens, actually a tunnel vision, in fact. When we are only looking at life and our health through a tunnel vision, we're missing out on everything else. I oftentimes like to give the example or the visual of like standing in a corner. You know, when we used to put kids in timeout or when we were in timeout as kids, we had to put our nose into the corner. So if you put your nose into the corner and you just back away a little bit, that's a very small view. That's a very small vantage point. We're only seeing just this one thing. And if we were to turn around from the corner and see the rest of the room, including what's happening outside, suddenly the world gets very bigger. And it's very bigger. Yes, very bigger. Very much bigger. Very bigger. So you turn around and you see, how big the world is behind you. That's kind of how I like to describe having a more expansive worldview, looking at the possibilities, the array of, different things that we can try, different protocols that are available to us, and different ways to look at health, body, mind, and soul through however the rest of the world looks at it. And I've studied a lot of different cultures and how they see health and how they do home birth or how they raise kids, just to try to get a better and bigger worldview of my own mindset and how I was wanting to approach health for myself and my family. With the Western medical model, we are taught our entire lives that this is literally the only model that exists. Doctors are trained in pharmaceuticals, and that is what is prescribed for symptoms. Not much else is talked about except over-the-counter drugs that we can take. But what about the rest of the world? We will get into this in just a moment and go through the different methodologies found and modalities found around the world that you can look into learning for yourself. I'm only going to touch the tip of the iceberg with some of these, but at least give you something to look into. Now, I have personally utilized and applied many of these other practices from around the world in both preventative care of my family and actually when and if symptoms do show up. Cultures and civilizations that far outdate the Western culture by thousands and thousands of years have implemented these tried and true methods that always include acknowledgement and treatment of the entire person, our mind, our body, and our soul. Everybody knows that when we are stressed, it can create other health issues. But there's not a huge focus on what actually creates the stress and how we respond to stress and how we de-stress and how we get out of stress. A lot of us end up getting into this rut where we're stressed all the time. We don't feel like our time frame is ours. We don't feel like the 24 hours in a day that we've been given is ours to choose. And oftentimes we just fall victim to the rut, to the autopilot of every single day, of everything that we have to do. And that takes our mind and that takes our decisions away from the things that are actually the most important for our health and for our healing and for our families. So I just want to empower you in this moment right now and let you know that you are given the same 24 hours a day that anyone else is given. You get to decide and choose which things you want to do for your life. And if you feel like that is out of your control, I would love to just give you a big hug and challenge you to, in a loving way, to reconsider where you can actually start taking control back of your life and making some different choices. I have changed jobs. I have switched careers. I have walked away. It's like this evolution of like learning how to do things differently, that when I put my health first, if whatever I'm doing doesn't serve my health and my family first, it's do-awayable with. I can walk away, because I guarantee you that every time I've chosen against that principle, it has not served me well. It has not served my family well. It has not served my health well. Every time I have run towards my health and towards passion and towards my creativity and towards the things that make my heart feel free, it has always benefited my health and my family's health. So I just, having done that, I want to assure you that once you get on the other side of that teeter-totter of making that decision, I promise you that you will never look back and regret that decision. But if you don't make that decision, you may have some regret. And regret gets stored up in one of our organs, and we ain't got time for that. So, cultures and civilizations. Oh, I already read that part. Hold up. The next point that we have here is we have been trained to trust authority and not ourselves. This is probably one of the biggest things of getting sidetracked away from our own intuition. In fact, that our intuition can get covered by layers and layers of things like trauma. We can separate ourselves by not listening to the very basic needs of our bodies. Think about it. When you have to go to the bathroom, do you often stop and say, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go meet my needs now? Or when you're thirsty or when you're hungry? Or do you feel confident enough in yourself to meet those needs as they arise? We build trust with our bodies, and we can also tear down trust with our bodies. Can your body rely on you to give it all of the things that it needs in order to thrive and survive and have optimal health? Or have you pushed those needs down? I don't care if it's emotionally, spiritually, or physically, with food, water, shelter, just the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you have pushed down those needs to, let's say, put something else first, then you are continuously in a state where you're breaking trust with your body. And I've had to totally rebuild all of my trust with my body. And I have found that it's these little things that add up over time that breaks that trust. Our body needs to know that it can rely on us to meet its most basic needs. So I encourage you in this to empower yourself by starting to make those changes. Don't put it off. Go to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's so basic, right? But but we find ourselves in meetings or we find ourselves doing other things. And, I know when you're on road trips, it can be harder, but I just want to encourage you and challenge you a little bit to start meeting your needs when they arise first. That helps open up other layers of healing, and your body will trust you to show you the other symptoms that are happening underneath the rest of just those basic things. Healing has come in layers for me. The minute I meet one need and I start to heal that thing, something else pops up. And then it just goes deeper and deeper from there. Okay. Through social conditioning and programming, modeling from our upbringing, we have TV and movies and what we see all around us, we have become more disconnected from ourselves more than ever before. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, taught doctors in his time to literally teach patients how to care for themselves so effectively that it was considered a good thing to teach people how to be their own healers and health advocates, that doctors would actually work themselves out of a job. Can you imagine what that would be like now? If healthcare empowered you through education from the moment we have conception or the moment of our child's birth, if you learned how to actually, in a good way, manipulate your immune system through the foods that you ate, the clean water that you drank, the clean air that you breathed, the air filters or the air purifiers that you have, and really just got back down to basic health. Can you imagine what life would be like and how different our healthcare system would be, our true healthcare system? It would be. So your medicine, and I'm not talking about drugs, and I'm not talking about pharmaceuticals or even herbs or homeopathics. I'm talking about the medicine that's medicine to you. So for me, laughter is a huge piece of medicine for what makes me tick. I love to laugh. I love to be silly. I love to make jokes. And sometimes all I need is a good laugh until I cry to release some stress or to, release those endorphins that just helps boost my immune system a little bit. That gets me over the hump of whatever it is that I'm going through. Connecting with the real you, the deep down you, is how you really help yourself. It's how you empower yourself. So, your medicine is not anybody else's medicine. And of course, again, I do not mean this in an allopathic way. I just want to be clear, of course, I'm not a doctor, that I am not here to prescribe, treat, or, try to diagnose any ailment or illness. In fact, that's not even my mindset. I'm here to teach you resources and educational things to help you empower yourself so you can live your best health and your best life. So your own medicine is just as unique and individual as you are. And I hope that through today's presentation, I'm going to help you unlock a little bit more of that. And of course, here is it's important to note that my little disclaimer here, that none of these modalities are substitutes for allopathic medicine. There's always a need for emergency medicine and surgical procedures because really we do kind of need both. I want to remind you too that your body's ability to heal is greater than anyone has ever permitted you to believe. And once you know that trick about your body, once you know that secret, there is no amount of healing that cannot be yours. So show me the other ways. We have homeopathy. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, what it is and how I've used it. Ayurveda, which is another one of my favorites. Traditional Chinese medicine, and of course, diet and nutrition. These are not all of the world modalities around the world, but these all are pretty popular, and we're going to go through each one of those. So homeopathy is a system of natural health care that has been in worldwide use for over 200 years. Homeopathy treats each person as a unique individual with the aim of stimulating their own healing ability. A homeopath selects the most appropriate medicine based on the individual's specific symptoms and personal level of health. And if you do not have a homeopathic practitioner and you would like to get one, they're very easy to find. You can even contact Trinity School of Natural Health and they may be able to put you in contact with a directory or someone who's a homeopath. It is recognized by the World Health Organization as the second largest therapeutic system in use in the world. While it is most popular in India and South America, over 30 million people in Europe and millions of others around the world also benefit from its use. And you can go to homeopathyschool.com to learn a little bit more about that. Homeopathy is based upon the exhaustive studies Works and Teachings of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. Let me see if I have. Aha, here we go. My next slide. And he teaches the dynamic principle of like cures like. And he figured all of this out. This is really so interesting how Dr. Hahnemann figured this out. By using himself as an experiment first. And if you've been in the natural health world any amount of time, you often are your very own first experiment before you ever talk about it to anybody else. You're going to, or use it with your kiddos. I'm always going to try it out on myself first, because I can't ask them to do anything that I won't first do myself. So here's how he figured out. According to the story on classichomeopath.com, Dr. Hahnemann figured out the whole thing of homeopathy, the whole practice. He figured it out by first becoming frustrated at the barbaric medical practices used on patients at the time. He spent much of his time translating medical texts, and it was during this process he noticed the substance of Peruvian bark or cinchona, I hope I'm saying that correctly, that was listed as causing symptoms such as numbness of extremities, anxiety, intermittent fevers, similar to symptoms of malaria, which were then used at the time to treat malaria. So Peruvian bark was used to treat malaria. Upon reading this information, Dr. Hahnemann decided to test, or do what we call in homeopathy as approving, cinchona bark on himself. With strict instructions given to his wife to follow in the process, he proceeded to take small amounts of the bark to see what the results would be. As he surmised, the symptoms of malaria appeared in himself and he became quite sick. Once the experiment was over and having stopped taking the bark, his health returned to normal. Upon the results of this test or proving, he determined that if a healthy person such as himself took cinchona bark and produced symptoms of malaria, then perhaps when a sick person exhibiting the symptoms of malaria took the cinchona bark, that they would become well. It wasn't long before he was able to prove his hypothesis, and through his careful and deliberate study, he began to test other substances to see what symptoms they produced. At every turn in his work, at every turn in his work, this was proven over and over again. And he also kept copious amounts of notes, recording symptoms that were also physical, emotional, and mental. So he looked at the whole person, the whole body, and he took notes on every little thing. This is the first and foundational principle of homeopathic medicine, and it's understood to mean that anything which can produce symptoms of disease in a healthy person can have a curative effect on those same symptoms in a sick person. Any substance which produces specific toxic symptoms in a healthy person, when given in its full strength form, will cure a sick person with those same symptoms in a very diluted form. And that's Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. I love how symptom specific these remedies are, from emotions, being upset or feeling depressed, to cold and sweaty hands, versus food cravings. Each symptom or group of symptoms means something in homeopathy. And so in comparison to the allopathic model of one size fits all, and it's not even considering all of these factors, mind, body, and soul working together, I realized that every symptom started to mean something. Homeopathy was the first thing to teach me that, and that each child presented symptoms differently, especially like when we had the chicken pox in my household. One kid liked the colloidal oatmeal baths, while another kid responded well to an essential oils like spray that I would just kind of miss lightly over their chicken pox spots. Other kids didn't want anything at all. It was just so interesting that every person responds differently. A friend who is a family doctor has also told me for years how successful she has used homeopathy to treat croup in babies. She said, Joni, it's like gone in a minute. And it doesn't take very long or very much of this medicine in order to help babies and to help ourselves. It's so amazing. So the outcomes have been just phenomenal in what she has seen in her patients. At the end of this presentation, I do post some articles as well, 20 different homeopathy things to keep on hand, and a few remedies you don't want to be without. So here I've got A few remedies to keep on hand. First, Aid Remedies like arnica. It's the #1 remedy for accidents, shock, injuries, and bruising. If the patient has a fear of being touched or may say that they're all right when they clearly aren't. Other applications include pain after dental work and jet lag. We also keep an homeopathic arnica gel in the house. So for when we have bruises, scrapes, and burns, we can apply it externally. And then we also take arnica internally as well. Calendula is a #1 remedy for healing wounds. It's useful as a topical cream in low potency. It quickly seals wounds, so make sure the wound is completely clean before it's used. Hypericum, I'm not definitely at all a efficient or proficient person who enunciates Latin very well. So if I trip up over some of these, I'll join the club, right? Hypericum or Hypericum, #1 remedy for injuries to nerves. This is something that has worked really well in dental procedures, sharp pains that are shooting as well. If you get an injection in your nerves, this would be something that would be great to take. And you know what? Find a holistic dentist or a dentist friendly to homeopathy and see if you have some of these procedures that you could bring these things in with you or your children. Because we all know that sometimes dental work is absolutely needed and we want to support our existing systems in our body to have the best possible outcomes. And then Apis, it's the #1 remedy for bites and stings. It helps with redness, pain, and swelling. Here is what homeopathy looks like. You can see that they come in tablets or granules. They come in little tiny bottles, and you basically don't want to touch the tablets or the granules. You want to twist the bottle, and then it comes out into the little tab. You also want to keep these away from things like EMFs, hot and cold temperatures. You want to store it in just a room temperature dry place, usually up in a cupboard, away from things like microwaves. I don't even suggest having a microwave in your house. I don't, but you want to keep it away from also electrical outlets and your phone as well, because it can change the frequency of the homeopathic remedy. So you just want to use a little bit more caution when you're storing these. A few more remedies to keep on hand that you don't want to be without. Aconite or aconite, it's the #1 remedy for nipping a cold in the bud. Aconite is for something that's sudden. If something comes on suddenly, this is the remedy to try, especially if it's an onset precipitated by a cold, a dry wind, a fright, or a shock. It's useful when illnesses come on suddenly. Gelsemium, not sure which one, but #1 remedy for the flu. Extreme prostration and weakness, if the symptoms include shivering up and down the spine, trembling, aching muscles, heaviness of the head and eyes, that would be one remedy versus another, Eupatorium. It's another important flu remedy, especially if characterized by extreme aching in the bones as if they were broken. And we've noticed a lot of these symptoms show up during COVID as well. So I know that when everything first started, many of us in the natural health world ran out and grabbed a lot of these remedies to help, just in case we were to get it. And I know there's lots of different mindsets on that too, which I can't even begin to go into today. So we're just going to move right on to this other thing. Arsenicum album, #1 remedy for food poisoning. This is something, of course, so important to keep on hand. It's also useful for the flu. The person is anxious and restless and does not want to be left alone. There may be a fear of death involved, and symptoms may get worse between midnight and 3 a.m. and they thirst for frequent sips of water. These are just a few things that I wanted to highlight to show you the differences in remedies, that maybe there's, you may be just having the flu, but the symptoms are very specific and there is a different remedy for the different symptoms. And I just wanted to be able to showcase that for you and also kind of teach you a little bit how to use the homeopathy charts that you find, or if you're, getting into understanding the materia medica. But really, if there's something you don't understand, please reach out to a homeopath. Usually you can find one on Facebook who's more than happy to answer, basic questions, even online. So see what you can find out, do a little bit of homework and see if you understand how to use it properly, and see for yourself. Good to go. One of the next things that I have used in my family and used on myself is Ayurveda. The Sanskrit term Ayurveda translates to knowledge of life, and the principles of this ancient wisdom remind us that the entire web of life is intricately woven. I love how beautifully this is described here. With a unique emphasis on total wellness, the art and science of Ayurveda work together to harmonize our internal and external worlds. Irene Lyon is she's just one of the most well-known names in the realm of trauma therapies. And she does things in the somatic experience where, we have trauma in our brain, but we have to move our body in specific ways to rewire our brain and do something called neuroplasticity. She has said something that I've carried with me for the last couple of years, and that is, we like to think that we should get out in nature. We like to think that we need to, go experience nature for some kind of peace. But what we all really need to realize is that we are nature. And I think that's really what so many of these other modalities around the world for treatment of our own health and well-being, that's something that they recognize that I don't see in the modern medical world, and that is how we relate to nature and ourselves, because there's no separation. So that you even bring that in from a spiritual perspective. There's no separation between us and nature and the divine. We're all one. It all works together. And then there's no separation between you and me. We're all working together. We're all a part of this very natural process. And one thing does affect the other. It's really symbiotic. And that's part of the mindset shift that I really like being able to share with you. I'm super passionate about it, as you can tell. So the basic difference between Ayurveda and a Western allopathic medicine is important to understand. Western allopathic medicine currently tends to focus on just the symptomatology and disease, and primarily uses drugs and surgery to rid the body of pathogens or diseased tissue. Many lives have been saved by this approach. In fact, surgery is encompassed by Ayurveda. However, drugs, because of their toxicity, often weaken the body. Ayurveda does not focus on disease. Rather, Ayurveda maintains that all life must be supported by energy and balance. When there is minimal stress and the flow of energy within a person is balanced, the body's natural defense systems will be strong and can more easily defend against disease. It must be emphasized that Ayurveda is not a substitute for Western allopathic medicine. And we definitely know that. Our five senses serve as the portals between the internal and external realms, as the five great elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth dance the dance of creation around and within us. And being a dancer, I could not put that in this presentation. Got to do what brings you joy, right? Ayurveda groups these five elements into three basic types of energy and functional principles that are present in every body and everything. Not just everybody, but every body and everything. Since there are no single words in the English language to describe these principles, they use Sanskrit words, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, to describe their combinations. So most people are going to be one of these three doshas, and you can look each of these up separately to find out which one you are, but often we are a combination of two very strongly. And you can alter your diet or for Vata, Pitta, or Kapha, for instance, one may be more sensitive to caffeine, or the other may need to eat more grounding foods, where the other one might need to eat more raw foods and cooler foods. It's so cool to see how other cultures around the world have looked at the body and look at body types in order to help them live their most healthy life. Everything that we experience, it becomes a physical substance, a thought or emotion, and has certain qualities. So people are broken up into Vata, which is wind, Pitta, which is fire, and Kapha, which is earth, to describe their combinations and constitutions. And there is a constitutional aspect to homeopathy as well. In fact, they both work really well together. Ayurvedic knowledge originated in India more than 5,000 years ago and is often called the mother of all healing. Homeopathy has been said to have its roots in Ayurveda. Just as everyone has a unique fingerprint, each person has a particular pattern of energy, an individual combination of physical, mental, and emotional characteristics, which comprises their own constitution. And that is the thing. Your constitution is not anybody else's constitution. It's yours specifically and uniquely. From body types to emotions and work tendencies. Do you work really hard? Are you an overworker? Are you tending to be a little more creative in your work? Not, so much physical, but more mental. Are you analytical? All of these things play their role in Ayurveda, and Ayurveda offers many specific tools for each individual. Ayurveda uses a combination of dietary and lifestyle changes, herbal medicinal preparations, healing oil treatments. Oh, my favorite, you'll see it here in a second, is Shirodhara. It gets you out of your head space, and they place the oil over your third eye, and you lay there, and there is just such a meditative effect in Shirodhara. I love getting that done. It actually made me snore a little bit. I was just like in that in between sleep space, and I woke myself up snoring. And the practitioner, she just kind of giggled over there in the corner, but it was really cool to experience the oil treatment and how it felt throughout the rest of my body. Ayurveda also does yogic practices and, purifactory treatments. I practiced that word 3 times before I got started on this. All to alleviate a huge array of ailments, physical and mental. And here is what Ayurveda looks like. You cannot see the words because I forgot to make them color right there at the bottom. But you'll see the Shirodhara treatment there, the oil being poured over the head. You'll see the different types of herbs, star of anise, turmeric. I think there's clove in there. Even blueberries, there's mustard, there's just different preparations that Ayurveda uses. The Panchakarma is a cleansing, multiple day, like a protocol. So really look that up if you're looking to purify, because it is super effective. It's not something that I've done yet, but I've been studying, gearing myself up to get ready to do it. All right, our next one, traditional Chinese medicine. This recognizes all of the earth elements: air, fire, wood, metal, earth. Traditional Chinese medicine is thousands of years old and has changed very little over the centuries. Its basic concept is that a vital force of life called qi surges through the body. Any imbalance of qi can cause disease and illness. They really focus a lot on the spleen. That's something my acupuncturist taught me, and she sees a lot of depletion of spleen energy in women's health, and especially here in America. This imbalance is most commonly thought to be caused by an alteration in the opposite and complementary forces that make up qi. These are called yin and yang, and I know that you've heard of that. None of us have escaped the 90s tattoos of yin and yang. I mean, maybe we didn't get one, but I had necklaces. It was a really popular concept in the late 90s. And, these fads happen here and there with different cultures from around the world. But really, if we just applied these concepts every day, we'd find a little more balance. Ancient Chinese believed that humans are microcosms of the larger surrounding universe and are interconnected with nature and subject to its forces. Again, this resembles what we just talked about in Ayurveda. Balance between health and disease is a key concept. Traditional Chinese medicine treatment seeks to restore this balance through treatment specific to the individual. Do you notice a theme with other modalities around the world and in cultures much older than the Western medical model? I love how they marry our external forces with our internal forces, and we are not seen as different. It all matters. It all plays a role: mind, body, and soul. And something I didn't have a lot of time to get into today is our microbiome. I call those the worlds within worlds within worlds. It's like the universe inside of us, and then worlds within worlds, ecosystems within ecosystems. We have an entire unexplored and often depleted ecosystem in our body, a whole universe that I'd like to, invite you to make something to make it the forefront of your health, especially the microbial world, because we are decimating these microbes that we need from generation to be passed on to generation. It's at a critical mass right now, and I just want you to think about honoring the microbes and honoring these systems within our bodies with every bite and with every step that you take towards your health. So back to traditional Chinese medicine. Treatment to regain balance may involve something like acupuncture, moxibustion. It's the burning of herbal leaves on or near the body. I had this done, my last acupuncture treatment. She took mugwort and put it on the ends of the needles and lit them on fire. You could feel the heat, but it's bringing in energy from those particular herbs to help our body. I also had something called gua sha done, which was an oil and a spoon, like a Chinese soup spoon. And she used it to move qi through my body, used it to help circulation. I actually had some bruises that I wasn't expecting to have because it wasn't painful. But it was just something that even proved that in our bodies, when we need to move things and where there's ouchy spots that we're not aware of, or different acupuncture points or meridians, to flow that energy through, it's really a very cool experience. If you've not tried it, cupping, of course, we saw that with Michael Phelps, really kind of made that more popular. Even though here traditional Chinese medicine has been using it for thousands of years, it really became popular to release tense muscles. The use of warm glass jars to create suction on certain points in the body. So we started. I remember seeing the Olympics and those cupping purplish marks being all over the body. Of course, traditional Chinese medicine uses massage, herbal remedies, and different movements and concentration exercises like Tai Chi. And here is what traditional Chinese medicine looks like. You'll see here in the lower left corner all of the different modalities, the electroacupuncture, you have acupuncture dietary recommendations, herbal therapy, cupping, gua sha. And then we have the cupping with the picture. You see the smoking herbs on the ends of the acupuncture needles. That's the gua sha, or not the gua sha, I'm sorry. That was the Moxibustion that we talked about earlier. And then, of course, something else done in traditional Chinese medicine is tongue mapping. Every time I see my acupuncturist, she wants to look at my tongue. She wants to see how the organs on my tongue are doing in relation to my digestion, my hydration, what the mucus on my tongue looks like. Is there a coating, a yellow coating, a whitish coating, a film? What's going on in my body? And actually, she was the first one to really show me, like, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's about how trauma stores up in your body. And I have had some significant traumatic experiences in my life. And when she did my tongue mapping, it hit me because she said, you see that divot right there in the front part of your tongue? She said, that little piece that's missing, that little split that you have, that's trauma. That's where the trauma shows up. And I was just like my body, it's a part of my physical mapping now. And it's really interesting. So that blew my mind. That really blew my mind that showed up like that. So now we have diet and nutrition. I don't like really the word diet as much because it has such a negative connotation, but let's use fuel for our body. How we fuel our body with nutrition is super important. And do we know what's in our food supply? It is becoming increasingly crazy with the amount of chemicals and glyphosate and pesticides and herbicides that are in our food, in our water, chlorine, fluoride. It's really something just to be able to eat our basic human right, like just to have a basic human right to have access to clean food, water, and air. It's not something that we come by very easily anymore in our culture. And that's why we have got to learn about this. We have to educate ourselves about it. If we want optimal health, we definitely can't eat foods that will continue to take away from the health and vitality of our life and our gut health. So by now, we've all heard the famous quote from Hippocrates, the father of medicine, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine food. And it's interesting to me that doctors, they still may take it. I heard a few years ago that they don't any longer, but the Hippocratic Oath, they take that oath. And yet this is what the father of medicine believed, and yet they are not trained in nutrition. From brain health to immune function, healing broken bones to autoimmune disorders, our bodies thrive on nutrition. But don't be fooled, not all food is created equal. GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and glyphosate, known as Roundup, the weed killer, yes, that people spray in their yards, have been robbing the microorganisms in our soil and in our guts. And isn't it interesting that like the Earth's surface is 70% water, our body, 70% water. The soil of the Earth is called the immune system of the Earth. Our guts are full of microbes, just like the soil, and that's where the hub of our immune system lies. 70% of our immune system, at least, lie in the, major hub. I call it the motherboard. Dr. Kiran Krishnan, a research microbiologist, calls it the control center. It just leaves us who consume foods from contaminated soil that have also been sprayed vulnerable to illness and gut issues, which affect our brain health because our guts are second brain, and it increases our risks for illness of all kinds. The blueprint of our bodies was designed to have clean food, water, and air to survive. When diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. When diet is correct, medicine is of no need. Diet and nutrition, understanding food as fuel, is a mindset shift in embracing more vegetables and fruits, and I purposely put vegetables first. There are many creative ways to incorporate fresh, whole foods into your diet. Make your bites count. And getting plenty of hydration, clean, filtered water, free from pesticides, chlorine, and fluoride, is essential for optimal hydration and maintaining a healthy gut microbiome. Learn to accommodate for cooking, and these are all simple little things that you can start doing now to help your body. Whether you are vegan or paleo, eating clean and knowing where to source organic, non-GMO foods is important. The Environmental Working Group has many resources, including the shopping lists, Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. You can go to ewg.org to get those. One of the things that they tell you which are the worst of the worst as far as the aggressors of, the most sprayed produce. The Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen give you a good job of saying, okay, which are the cleanest foods that you can buy non-organic? Which are the foods that you must buy organic and non-GMO? So they help you kind of navigate that, and the list changes every year, so make sure you take a look at that. It is mandatory viewing for all of my clients who work with me to watch the documentary Secret Ingredients, and you can go to secretingredientsmovie.com. Our dear, dear friend Jeffrey Smith, Institute for Responsible Technology, he made this movie, and it is just a perfect layout of what's happening in our food supply today, how we are getting non-nutrition from the foods that we're eating, and what the dangers of Roundup glyphosate are in our food supply, and its connection to chronic illness in so many people, including children. And so many are experiencing that in our country today. We've had 110 new autoimmune diseases added to the already existing list of autoimmune diseases just in the last few years. It's like we are at an epidemic level of chronic inflammation, chronic pain, chronic gut dysbiosis, chronic gut issues, and the answers are not being found in the modern medical system. And certainly gut healing is not something being taught. And certainly I know friends who have endured serious gut health issues. They are not being warned about food, pesticides, and glyphosate. They're not taught what things to avoid, so as to allow their body to heal, but also to not make it worse. If we leave it at the hands of corporate agriculture, we will only get more of the same. Our vitality is not for sale or profit. In learning to eat clean, get to know your farmers. Vote with your dollar. Go to the farmer's market. Experiment with growing your own food. The soil actually helps build your own immune system, getting your hands in dirt. We need to reconnect with our food supply more than ever, the oneness of where our fuel comes from, and take an active part in our nutrition. Here's what nutrition looks like. Fresh foods. I included a fermented food slide here in the middle, right next to the mind, body, soul, spirit, because fermented foods are a great way to add diverse microbes to our body. It's stuff that's found in nature, and you can learn how to make fermented foods on your countertop, or you can buy sauerkraut and kimchi. There's all kinds of things. And I am going to do a quickie on the gut microbiome because I can't not do it, because it's one of my favorite things to talk about always. The word microbiome is defined as the collection of microbes or microorganisms that inhabit an environment, creating a sort of mini ecosystem. Our human microbiome is made up of communities of symbiotic, commensal, and pathogenic bacteria, along with fungi and viruses, with all of which call our bodies home. These communities exist in unique complementary blends and inhabit everything from our skin and genitals to our mouths and eyes, and of course our intestines. These clusters of bacteria from different regions of the body are variously known as microbiota, including, for example, your skin microbiota, oral microbiota, vaginal microbiota, which is why vaginal birth is so important to build the immune system of your baby, and gut microbiota, also known as gut flora. It's been estimated that 70 to 80% of our immune system live in our gastrointestinal tract. Fun fact, your gut is called your second brain. And I just wanted to remind you, lastly, here on this slide, in case no one has told you, it is your sovereign right to choose what goes into your body. You have the power to choose health at any given moment. Your body is resilient and amazing and has a desire to be in balance and to heal. Old dogs can learn new tricks. Despite what we think, it doesn't take long to change your taste buds. Retrain those taste buds. Healthy food is and can be very delicious. There are more recipes out there now than ever now that you have the internet. And one of my favorite things is to do recipe roulette. Type in a bunch of ingredients, hit the word recipe, type in the word recipe, and hit go on your search engine. And all kinds of recipes will come up. It's also how I reduce waste with leftovers. So reconnecting and realigning with your intuition helps you become your very best health advocate. And this is the way that you start advocating not only for your health, but the health of your children, the health of your family. I thank you so much for joining me today. Here's a list of my sources and references. I hope that this has helped you to feel more empowered and given you a list of resources and education to help you become the very best you for you and your family, returning to naturopathic mindsets and incorporating these things for you and your family, and of course, making the switch. Thank you so much for joining me. I have enjoyed being able to share these things with you today. It has been my biggest heartbeat to teach families and teach mamas, teach dads, teach partners, teach generations of families how to get back to the basics with their health. And it all starts first with that mindset. I cannot express that enough. So if you need anything, this presentation is going to be on for 6 months. So congratulations to you for attending the Trinity Health Freedom Expo today, because there's so many great classes that have gone on this weekend that there's no way even any of us are going to be able to attend everything that we want to learn. So big special thanks to the Trinity Health Freedom Expo for making these classes available for 6 months. Thank you for joining me in this presentation today. And should you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out and interact with me on this Whova platform. So thank you so much. Enjoy your day. I look forward to helping you out with anything you could need. Thanks.